Good morning. I'd like to say a few words about design research and the future. Is this working? There we go. So the way I think about design is that it's a way of manifesting change, technological, social, or cultural. So every innovative piece of design is a hinge from one condition to another, sometimes even from one era to another. That's why design is so critical to imagining the futures that we desire, because it's a way of prototyping change and making it tangible. We're in the midst of a transition from an era of fossil fuels, cheap, globalized materials, and mountains of waste, to an era of clean energy, circularity, biomaterials, and a concern for non-human life. With 8 billion people on the planet, we need certain kinds of abundance. But what kinds? The abundances of the 20th century, more concrete, plastic, and waste, or an abundance of biodiversity, biomaterials, and human capacity. The challenge with this shift is that we have to work at two speeds simultaneously, with immediate urgency and with the vision to begin the slower project of reimagining our relationship with the living world. And Jane Goodall was saying exactly that this morning. This is the climate clock we have at the Design Museum. It's counting down to when we hit 1.5 degrees of warming. You only have to look at it briefly to know that the next decade is no ordinary decade. Not only are we against the clock in the immediate future, we also need to set in motion the shifts in consciousness and behavior that will recast our relationship with the living world in order to help us and our planet to thrive. Gramsci's old adage, the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born, is so true once more. It's true politically, it's true economically, and it's true materially. But what does this new world look like? And why is design research so important? The role of design research is to incubate embryonic ideas that can lead to change, to create the prototypes and system demonstrators that can challenge business as usual. I'm sure everyone in this room believes in the power of design in the green transition. The question is, how do we deliver on that? Do we expect the market to deliver change? In some cases it will, but we also need mission-driven research funding. At Future Observatory, the National Design Research Program for the Green Transition, we support research that can challenge existing models. With the Arts and Humanities Research Council, we've funded more than 100 research projects that seek to reduce carbon emissions and waste and promote regenerative design. Many of these are investigations of alternative material systems, like Design Hopes, which is working with the NHS in Scotland, and the NHS is the biggest user of single-use plastics in Europe, to try and make that a more sustainable ecosystem. Or FIBE, which is producing an alternative textile yarn made from agricultural waste. In this case, the plants that get thrown away when you're in potato farming. Architecture, too, is exploring the power of biomaterials, materials that can be grown rather than extracted, materials that can be local rather than relying on global supply chains. And sometimes the future involves rediscovering ancient materials, like stone, through the lens of contemporary technologies. This is a system demonstrator we've been supporting, which is for the creation of building frames using pre-tensioned stone. So a building frame that uses stone produces 90% less carbon emissions than a building frame made of reinforced concrete. So this is the kind of change that design research can deliver now, but we also need a more holistic vision. We can reduce carbon emissions, we can use less concrete and plastic, but is it enough? Are concepts like recycling and net zero the paradigm shift we need? The longer-term health of the planet requires a new and bolder vision, requires new narratives. The climate crisis is, after all, partly a crisis of storytelling. A narrative, as Arturo Escobar says here, is a designing force. The true narrative behind the environmental crisis, as Jane Goodall said, is that we have become disconnected from the living world that gives us life. Design is a deeply human-centric discipline, which is wonderful for us humans if you discount the impact of our incredible production on natural ecosystems. In rebuilding our relationship with the living world and with all life, designers have a new role that goes beyond merely servicing human needs and desires. Designers will join with ecologists and other disciplines to be stewards of the living. And this will involve supporting ecosystems like coral reefs that can no longer regenerate themselves, as with these reef modules by Reef Design Labs. Or it means building in ways that are sensitive to the non-human world around us. And inevitably that involves some shift in perspective. Does it mean designing gardens not for human pleasure, but for pollinator pleasure? Because without pollinators, well, let's not go there. Does it mean designing architectural facades that are not just barriers to keep non-human life out, but can also be hosts for life? In fact, is architecture not so much anymore just about defining space, but about defining relations? Designers can support the legal initiatives and community projects that seek to recognize rivers and other natural bodies as living beings with rights and needs. All of this challenges the way we see design. Is design itself undergoing a shift from human needs and the cliché of problem solving to something more relational, a practice of world making? This inevitably involves noticing the small life and the seemingly inconsequential, so that designers can learn to anticipate the potential impacts of their projects. There's a video game in our More Than Human exhibition at the Design Museum with a passage from Alan Watts that I'd like to end on because it makes the point far more eloquently than I can.
Every minute little fruit fly or gnat or bacterium, I will go so far as to say, is an event upon which this whole cosmos depends. This thing goes both ways. It's not only that every little organism which exists depends on its total environment. The reverse is also true, that the total environment depends on each and every one of those little organisms. So that you could say this universe consists of an arrangement of pattern in which every event is essential to the whole thing.
Thank you.